Hey, this is Jamie with Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk to you about my top 10 favorite cooperative games that present a puzzle for players to solve together. In next week's video, I'm going to do a similar video, but about games that pit the game itself, cooperative games that pit the game against the players. A classic example of that would be Pandemic. Pandemic presents a series of problems for players to solve together. Whereas in the types of games that I'm discussing today, which is my preferred version of cooperative games, there's a puzzle for players to solve together. Yeah, I'll discuss some of the pros of this style of cooperative game in a moment. But let me jump right into the honorable mentions to give you an idea of the types of games that I'm talking about. Not Alone, Mysterium, Magic Maze, Chronicles of Crime, Codenames Duet, Letter Jam, The Game Sprawlopolis, Unlock, Graphic Novel Adventures, and Fox and the Forest Duet. Those are some fantastic games in this genre, but not quite on my top 10. So number 10, I have Fog of Love. Fog of Love is not entirely cooperative. It's a game about relationships. It's a romantic comedy game built mostly for two players. Where two players are essentially just building a relationship together, a romantic relationship, over the course of the game. And you are trying to win, as in any romantic relationship or any relationship, you're trying to win together. But it is possible in this game to win independently. One player can win, the other player couldn't. But that really is not the focus of the game. The focus of the game is trying to get both players to win together. And it is just such a beautiful, well-designed cooperative game. Where a lot of what you're doing throughout the game are establishing who you are in the relationship and making decisions in the relationship based on what's best for you and best for the your goals as a person, but also keeping the other person in mind. So it really is the perfect microcosm of any relationship where you're trying to look out for yourself and what's healthy for you, but also what's healthy for the other person. And I'm describing this in a thematic way because the game is very thematic, but it also is very mechanical in how it does those things, how it accomplishes those things. So my number 10 is Fog of Love. My number 9 favorite cooperative game that presents a puzzle for players to solve together is Mental Blocks. So Mental Blocks is a fantastic example of a number of games in this genre that have limited information. Because in Mental Blocks, each player is given a card for that scenario in the game where you get to see an angle of what the final structure needs to look like. And then all players together, with a limited amount of time, will try to use little foam blocks to create a structure that meets all of the goals that all the different players are seeing. So for example, from my angle, I might see a square and then a rectangle and then a triangle, but I don't see any colors there. I just see from that one angle how things should look. And I don't know which angle that is. It could be a top-down view, it could be a side view. And then another player might have some colors. They might have some color information about different blocks. Another player might see slightly a 3D angle on their card. So we're all getting different angles of the same structure. It's incredible that they designed the game to accomplish that goal and have all those different angles in each of the scenarios. And it's just a really interesting mental puzzle to accomplish with the other players with distinctly limited information between the different players in the game. That's Mental Blocks, my number 9 favorite cooperative game in this genre. Number 8 is Menara. I wanted to include a dexterity game on here because I think dexterity games make fantastic cooperative games because they remove the alpha player problem. When I am touching something in the game, no matter what you say to me, you cannot impact my ability to remove or place a piece to the best of my ability. And Menara is a cooperative game where you're cooperatively building a big structure together. The game presents like little puzzles along the way that you need to solve to build up this structure. But it's up to you to place the right things, to decide where to place them, and to strategize together with other players about where you should do those things. But when it comes down to it, when it's your turn, you have to actually use your hands, your shaking hands, to place something on this structure and hope that it doesn't fall down. I think that's a fantastic way of creating this type of cooperative experience that is a puzzle shared by all players together, and that is Menara. Number 7 is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. This is a really, really clever narrative, kind of story-driven cooperative game where you are trying to solve a mystery better than Sherlock Holmes solves that mystery. So you do have a bit of competition, but it's very abstract. Sherlock Holmes isn't getting in your way as you try to solve this mystery. He is just doing it better than you all the time, and you're trying to kind of outwit Sherlock Holmes and solve the mystery better than he does. And the way you solve this mystery is you just sit down with a little bit of information. You sit down with a scene where you have a little bit of information, and the game says, go do whatever you want. Go talk to anyone you want. There's an index, kind of a phone book, where you can look up different places that you can go. So if the murder involved a horse somehow, if like a horsehair was found at the scene, then you might look up different stables or carriage houses in the city at that time, and you might go investigate them. The game doesn't say go there. It just gives you some clues, and you do with those clues what you wish. There's also a map that you can look at. There's newspaper articles from that day that you can look at and gain information about the mystery. It's so wide open, it's so cleverly designed, and you're not competing against the game. The game is just saying, here's the information, do what you will to solve this mystery. I think that does a fantastic job of doing that. And so that is my number 7, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. My number 6 favorite game, cooperative game that presents a puzzle for players to solve together is Hanabi. Hanabi is the first game of this kind of genre of games where you have a hand of cards. There's not many games in this genre, but you have a hand of cards, but you can't look at them. All the other players see your hand of cards, but you don't know your own hand. So you have all this information about what other players have, but you don't know what you have. And you are trying to play cards on the table in a certain order to create stacks of fireworks, essentially. So a stack of blue fireworks that numbers 1 to 5. And you're throughout the process, you're giving players clues about what they have in their hand so that they can play the right card at the right time to the table. It's such a clever little thing to have limited information, but where that limited information is reversed. So instead of me having information that you don't, that is the way it is, but it's not my information that I have secret. It's all players can see what I have. It's just what I have that is secret to me. I think that is such a clever twist on the genre, and I always have a blast playing Hanabi. So that's my number 6. My number 5 favorite game that presents a puzzle for players to solve together is The Crew. The Crew is a trick-taking game where you were trying to win certain tricks based on tasks for that round. So, for example, if I have a task that says, I might have one that says, win a hand with the pink 3. And so I need to make sure over the course of that round that I win the pink 3. And all players know that information. We all know what each other's tasks are, but we don't know the cards that are in our hand. And so we're trying to navigate that tough proposition of what do I play at this time so that I can make sure that Jamie gets that pink 3 and no one else takes it. The thing that I particularly love about The Crew, though, is the mission system. There are 50 missions in The Crew, and they start off very simply, very quick games, and then they escalate from there. I love that you can sit down and play. So it's not like a type of game where there really isn't that much of a win-lose proposition. You can win or lose any individual mission, but then you just play it again. And then you play it again until you win it, and then you move on to the next one. But the missions are so short that losing doesn't really feel that bad, and winning feels really good, especially as you escalate, especially as you get to the harder missions. And you can even start, when you sit down to play The Crew, if you feel like you've reached a certain level of mastery, you could start with level 20 if you want, with mission 20. But I love the little burst of satisfaction, the sense of progress whenever you sit down and play The Crew. And you can stop at any time. You can sit down and play The Crew for 20 minutes and get through 3 or 4 missions, or you could play it for an hour, or you could play it, I don't know, it's just so flexible. And I love this escalating mission system in The Crew. That's why it's my number 5 on this list. And number 4 on the list is another game with escalating missions in a way, and that is The Mind. So in The Mind, you start out with a hand of a single card that's numbered 1 through 100, and your job is to play that card in order with the other players who also have a different number card in their hand. So if I have a 5 in my hand, I'm trying to probably play it very early in the round. If you have a 98 in your hand, you are waiting to the end of the round to play it. And that's round 1. Then in round 2, we each have 2 cards. So you shuffle all the cards back together. You have no new information going into that round. You just shuffle all the cards together, and you have 2 cards in hand that you have to play in the right order with the other players. It's so simple, but it feels so good when you sync together with other people. And I think this is the wonderful thing about this style of game. When you do well in this style of game, it's because you are working well with the other players. It's not a matter of mitigating something bad that is happening to you based on the game. The game isn't doing anything terrible to you. Rather, you are working together and syncing together with other players to solve a problem, to solve a puzzle. And also, the mind is a great example of the rewarding nature of these games, because if you pass a level, you get a little bump, you get a little upgrade. You might get a new life. You might get a new throwing star that you can use for kind of a free pass to let all players get rid of a card. So I like that it's not, even though the game gets harder because you have more cards in hand, the game also gives you these little rewards along the way. I really, really love that about the mind. I guess I'll mention here one of the downsides about this style of game is that you only have yourselves to blame when something bad happens. So in the other style of cooperative game, if something really bad happens, it's the game's fault. The game did this terrible thing to you. But in the mind, if you mess up, you blame each other. And so while you can have these wonderful moments in cooperative games where you sync together, you feel great about what you've done together, you can also have moments, I've experienced this probably more in Hanabi, where you kind of groan at each other's mistakes. Hopefully you laugh at each other's mistakes too, but you can also get a little frustrated with your fellow players because they are the ones creating the unfortunate circumstances that they play a number out of order in the mind. But anyway, that's the mind. That's my number 4 favorite cooperative game in this genre. My number 3 favorite game in this genre is the wonderful game, the Shipwreck Arcana. I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but it's the Shipwreck Arcana. This is an amazing puzzle game where on your turn, for a number of reasons, I'll try to go into it pretty briefly here, but basically you are trying to solve a series of 7 puzzles, or you can actually change the number based on the difficulty level. But typically, I think it is 7 different puzzles. Maybe it's 8. And the puzzle is that you are drawing a token from a bag that has a number on it. So they're numbers that look kind of like this. So little wooden tokens that have numbers on them. You're drawing when it's your turn, you're drawing 2 of these from the bag. And so I might draw, say, a 4 and a 3. They're numbers 1 through 7. And then I need to place one of those numbers on one of the clue cards on the table. Let's see if I can get an example of the clue card here. So let's see if I can find it real quick. So here's one that says, here's the ghost. It says it's alone. If no visible fate is exactly one more or one less than either of your fates, place one of them here. So the fates are these number tokens that you're drawing. The game uses kind of this thematic language behind it. And so if no visible fate is exactly one more or one less than either of your fates, play one of them here. Okay, so this is actually referring to some tokens that are on the table. But generally these are cards say like if the sum of your numbers of your fates, the 2 fates that you drew is odd, you could place one of them here. And so if I have a 4 and a 3, 4 plus 3 is 7, that's an odd number. So I could place the 3 on that fate. And that signals to other players that the other number that I have in my hand, which they are trying to guess, is an even number. And so you're using these 2 numbers. So the decision point is like, which number do I choose and which clue do I put it on to communicate to the other players what number I have in my hand. It's a very simple puzzle, but it's very tough to make that decision during the game. And so one player has this information. They know what the other number is. I know what my other number is, and the other players are trying to guess it. And they can just choose not to guess it too. They can choose to wait until they have a little bit more information. And then it passes to the next player. And so you're constantly flipping between being the player with the information and being the player who's trying to guess what information that player is conveying to them. It's a wonderful little puzzle game. And I love just the amount of agency you have in this game. Even though it is a random draw, you have so much control over the decisions you make, which guesses you're going to make, which clues you're going to give, where you're going to put those clues, where you're going to put your fate cards. I really, really love this game. That is the Shipwreck Arcana, number 3 game on this list. The number 2 game on this list is another very simple one, but one that I have loved playing over and over again, and that is Just One. In Just One, it is a party game, but a fully cooperative party game, where you are trying to help a player guess a word. And the way you do that is give them a one-word clue. So if the word is pizza, I might write down on my little card, I might write down pepperoni or slice. And we all do this simultaneously. We write down this clue, and then we show each other before the guesser gets to see what the clues are. We show each other, and if someone else has also written down pepperoni, then our clues go face down at the time of revealing them to the player who's trying to guess pizza. And so you're trying to guess words that will communicate what the word is to the guesser, but not words that are so obvious that someone else at the table might also write them down. I love the puzzle of this game. It's so light, it's so fun. It's easy to get to the table for a few minutes or to play it for a long period of time. We always end up laughing when we play Just One. And it's just for what it is, such a simple game. It is incredibly cleverly designed. And I want to mention that because a lot of these games are very distilled, simple games. There's not a lot of complexity to them, or a lot of complication to them. There's a lot of depth still to these games. But I think they are incredibly difficult to design. Like the number of games I had to choose from for this list were much smaller than the number of games where you're competing against the game itself. And I think part of that might be because it's hard to design this style of game. It's hard to design this style of cooperative game where you are solving a puzzle together and finding a way to make that work so that it's not just like a solo game, for example. But Just One pulls that off in a brilliant, brilliant way. And finally, my number 1 game on this list is probably one of the newest, I think, on this list, and that is Mysterium Park. I put Mysterium as an honorable mention because I really do like Mysterium, but Mysterium Park is incredible. It's what I wanted Mysterium to be, and I didn't even know that in terms of setup. Because Mysterium Park is so easy to set up and play and get to the table. The idea in Mysterium Park is that a player has died, and that player is now a spirit trying to help other players guess how the murder happened. They're trying to guess where it happened and who did it. And they're doing this, you can see in the back of the box, the ghost player, the spirit player, is doing this by showing these weird, beautiful, dreamlike art cards to the other players. I might give 2 cards to another player, and I'm trying to communicate to them so that we can eliminate one of the locations and eliminate one of the murder subjects. One is associated with each of the other players. And so again, kind of like Shipwreck Arcana, it's similar to Just One as well. One player has information that the other players don't have. So there's kind of an asymmetric aspect to that too. One player has information, the other players don't, but you're still all working together to solve the puzzle, to solve the mystery. And I love how easy it is to get to the table. I love how easy it is to teach. And I want to stress that for this game in particular because this version of Mysterium makes it super easy to set up each round. There's no giant complication anymore as there was in the original Mysterium to actually getting the game to the table. All you do to get this game to the table is choose who's the ghost and lay out 9 random cards on the board and then start playing. That's it. I mean, you just jump in and start playing. So it's so easy to get to the table. It makes the game faster and makes the game replayable. You get to play the game right away again if you want. We often do this. We'll have one player be the ghost, and then the game is over in 20, 25 minutes, and we have someone else be the ghost, and we play again. Just a wonderful, wonderful game with this sense of limited information, asymmetric information, while you're trying to solve this puzzle together. Again, I love this genre of game. I think I'm fascinated by it. I am designing a game in this genre. My cooperative game has this element of letting players solve a problem together, rather than pitting the game against players, constantly punishing them and trying to have them mitigate that punishment. I appreciate that style of game. I do have a top 10 list coming up on that, but this is my preferred style of cooperative game. I love the agency players have. I love that just bad stuff isn't constantly happening to you. You are just trying to solve an interesting puzzle, and that to me is a lot of fun. So yeah, those are my top 10. I'd love to hear your top 3, top 5, top 10 favorite games in this genre, cooperative games in this genre. And join me next week for my list of cooperative games that pit the game itself against the players. Thanks.